Hi, everyone. I'm Steve Kep, co-founder and editor-in-chief of From Day One. It's our forum on corporate values. Welcome to our webinar today. It's about the Agentic HR operating model, moving beyond chatbots to AI-first HR. But before we get started, there's an easy way to stay connected with the From Day One community. We publish a monthly LinkedIn newsletter featuring highlights from recent events and a preview of what's coming up next. It's a simple way to stay in the loop with our community. I'm putting the subscription link in the chat right now, and we'd love to stay connected with you in the new year. Now, today's session is titled The Agentic HR Operating Model Moving Beyond Chatbots to AI-First HR. Most AI in HR still requires constant oversight, or worse, it creates more work than it removes. What if your HR team could rely on an AI teammate that resolved complex cases, spanned systems, delivered outcomes in minutes instead of hours? In this session, the head of product at Wisq will share a unique point of view on what it takes to build an agentic HR operating model, one that blends deep HR expertise with autonomous reasoning to transform service delivery and operations. You'll get a behind-the-scenes look at how agentic AI is making AI-first HR possible, even in compliance-heavy and high-stakes environments. Today's webinar is being presented with support from Wisq, and I'll tell you a bit about them. Wisq is an award-winning agentic HR platform and the maker of Harper, the first AI HR generalist powered by HRLM. It's the only language model built specifically for the complex, policy-driven world of HR. With Harper, companies can automate service delivery, cut HR workloads by more than 80%, and deliver better employee care at scale. Now, a few logistical items before we get started. This webinar is being recorded, and it'll be available to you on demand soon after the event, so you can look out for an email in about 24 hours with the link. That same email will give you info on how you can get professional development credits from SHRM and HRCI. We'll have a written account of the conversation on our website at fromdayone.com. Now, for you, our audience, about 45 minutes into the webinar, we'll have a Q&A session. You can submit your questions anytime you think of them using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. The chat is also open for your comments, so we'll be following that as well. So with all that said, now let's get started and meet today's speaker. We're joined by Clayton Holtz. He's the head of product at Wisq, where he leads the vision, strategy, and development of the company's AI-powered HR solutions. Clayton, welcome. It's great to have you here. This is a hot story right now. Please take it away.
Wonderful. I will share my screen and thank you, Steve, for that intro. I would happily listen to you on my local NPR station if you ever are so inclined to come to KQED. So let's talk about agentic HR. I want this webinar to be practical to you. I really dislike, as a product guy, the fluffy headlines and the things that are kind of vague and amorphous. I've been working in the trenches with agentic AI and AI in general for a couple of years now, and I want to tell you candidly what I'm seeing, where I'm seeing HR teams struggle, and want you to leave with some very practical to-dos that you can take so that you leave with confidence about using agentic AI next year. So, quick run of show. We're going to start off with a reality check on the state of AI agents. And then I'm going to talk about 4 recommendations, again, with very practical tips about what you can do here going into 2026. Thinking proactively about your relationship with IT, which is essential. Identifying opportunities in your processes. I'm actually going to walk you through exactly how I will do this and give you a worksheet and a way that you can do this yourself. That's where I see a lot of HR teams get stuck. Thinking about how to prepare your policies, which is a very common question I get, and then considering AI in your org structure. So very quick overview of Wisq. In addition to Steve, we're on a mission to make HR work like magic with agentic AI. I think the most important thing here is that across our team, we have something like 150 years of experience in HR tech. A lot of the core team here came from Glint, which is an employee engagement product. I was on the core product team at Glint and helped build that product. I've been chatting with HR folks like yourselves for the weekly for the last decade at Glint, and then LinkedIn Learning, and then part of Microsoft and Microsoft Viva. And then, as Steve mentioned, we built Harper, who's the world's first AI HR generalist. But I am going to not make this a sales conversation. I want this to be useful for you, whether you work with us or you work with any other vendor or you work with your IT team to bring agentic AI into your org. Okay, so reality check. AI is magical, but it's not magic. It will take work to get it to do significant or have significant impact for you. I'm sure you've heard that some of the early returns from AI experiments are promising but not transformational. Copilot published this very kind of mum result that Copilot was saving people 14 minutes a day. I think they've updated this to 25 minutes a day. And I'm sure you saw this salacious report that 95% of generative AI pilots are failing. If you actually click behind this juicy headline, it's much more balanced than I think most people think because they haven't maybe read the whole thing. What it's saying is that flashy CEO projects in sales and marketing are struggling, but actually AI projects in disciplines such as HR and finance are showing good returns. Two is that buying is working better than building, and I'm going to talk about some of the reasons for that today because working with the AI products is still very hard. And the third is that AI needs to be applied to workflows, and we're going to talk about the specifics of that too. So I just wanted to share a kind of the state of play of AI, some of the challenges that exist. I'm not going to spend too long on this, but I think it's helpful grounding for the discussion. There are a few fundamental limitations with AI today that you're going to have to work around in an HR context. In our domain, it's important that things be consistent, accurate, aligned with company policies, procedures, et cetera, and explainable. And unfortunately, these four things are not out of the box, something that you get out of the box from AI. I like to call AI models a little bit more like live animals than traditional software. If this, then that, it's going to happen 100% of the time. That's not how these models work. They are probabilistic. I'm sure you've heard that. I'm sure you've seen that. What that means is that they're going to behave slightly differently every single time. And a model with no supporting safety algorithm is going to be consistent anywhere from 60 to 90% of the time. Unfortunately, Copilot is the worst that I've seen. I constantly test us and test HR stuff against Claude and Gemini and ChatGPT and Copilot. Now, humans aren't 100% consistent either. And I do think that AI can be very consistent and perhaps more consistent than humans, more accurate, but it's not something that you necessarily get out of the box. The second is that they're not great at following complex instructions. I'm sure you've seen these memes on LinkedIn where somebody's showing you like the one prompt to rule them all, the ultimate prompt. And I'm going to do that today. Actually, I'm going to give you the ultimate prompt. But in that, models, just like humans, if there's too much information in them, they're not going to be excellent and precise at following them consistently every single time. On the right, you see a chart from OpenAI. This is a GPT-5 announcement. The words and the labels don't matter too much, but basically what it's showing is that the biggest, baddest model at the best in class company for AI models is only 70% consistent and multi-turn instructions. So single prompts are not going to be sufficient to getting consistent, accurate responses for HR. The next one is the boogeyman of hallucination, which I'm sure you've heard about. Hallucination is built into the way the models work in that models are trained to be people pleasing. And this is this word we now suddenly all know about called sycophancy. And I would maybe return that and say that, the models are designed to please people and they want to be helpful. Unfortunately, that's not HR's job in all contexts. HR's job is to be empathetic, sure, to be there for employees, sure, but also to be fair and consistent. And sometimes that's not people pleasing. And models out of the box will do stuff like what's in the red, which is that they'll try to fill in gaps and be helpful to the person who they're chatting with. And so, if I ask kind of a fringe question, fringe policy question to AI is more than willing to go ahead and make a decision on behalf of your organization that might not be present in the source material. So that's just a risk you run again with kind of out of the box single turn AI solutions that you might get out of a custom GPT or out of a Copilot. And another thing I hear about in HR a lot is AI doesn't magically make behavior change easier. We all work in this space, and part of the beauty of HR is that these are a lot of people problems, and people problems are fun. They're behavior change problems, but they're also really hard. I hear asks a lot, hey, can I have AI help people write individual development plans or something like that? The answer is yes, you can do that. You can have AI write an individual development plan. But my question back to you would be, do people do that today? Because if people don't do it today, AI is not suddenly going to change that motivational gap and change people's behavior. It might make the experience of doing it different and better, but it's not necessarily going to change their behavior. And so I would encourage you to think about ways in which you can apply AI without changing people's behavior. The reality is most employees are not early adopters. Most people are not early adopters. Just a small slice of people are innovators and early adopters, and those are the people who are loudest on LinkedIn. Most of us are in the yellow and green buckets, and that's perfectly normal. There's nothing wrong with that. That's how we are. We got busy lives and lots of things going on, and kids yelling at us after work, and we don't have time or want to go play with AI. And so these people are not necessarily going to go find highly productive uses of AI. You're going to need to bring them to them. The best possible use cases are ones where people just keep doing what they were doing before, and AI is there. So they don't have to change any behavior at all. Rather than all of a sudden everyone needs to write IDPs. It's like, oh no, whatever they were doing before, I'm going to augment that, automate it, make it better with AI. And I'll share some examples of that too. Last, the market is awash in noise. It's really confusing. It's confusing even for me. All the stuff that's out there, and agent washing is a real thing, and people are coming out with whatever the new term is. They're saying that we have it too. All the incumbent players and existing players, they want their names to be associated with the latest trend, whatever that is. It was co-pilots and assistants, and then it was agents. And I'm sure in the next 6 months there'll be a new name for it. Candidly, all this stuff that I have seen is theoretical. It's marketing, it's ideas, but it's not settled and certainly not in production at big, real enterprises doing work. I think there's a temptation here to say, like, okay, well, then I'm going to sit it out and wait for it to crystallize. I actually think that's the wrong decision here. I think that these standards and the names that we use, there's going to be quite a bit of churn over the next couple of years. And some of the words that we talk about, like A2A and MCP and all these random terms that are invented, they're going to keep moving. So rather than sit it out, my recommendation would be to not get lost in the noise and start thinking about specific use cases that you can apply AI to and start working. And that's also what we're going to do in our worksheet today. So my conjecture is that today's AI can transform HR. There are some pitfalls that we're going to need to work around consistency and accuracy, but I've already seen this happening both with our customers and with other companies out there. But you're going to need to be proactive to reap the benefits. It's not just magic in a box. You are going to have to do work. And I can clearly see a world in which in the HR domain, AI is doing kind of chopping off the bottom of the old pyramid or tier system and doing a lot of the tier 0, tier 1, maybe some of the tier 2 work, and then augmenting your work further up the pyramid. Just a quick case study, just to kind of like prove that I actually believe this, is with one of our customers who I think we've extricated the name from this. They had a really kind of time-consuming process that was taking a lot of their HR team's time. This happened to be in employee relations. And we were able to bring 100 hours a month of work down to 10. We were able to kind of drive up consistency because they had kind of a disaggregated process, a lot of emails and messy things back and forth. Also, different people across different branches. In this case, it was a manufacturing company. And that managers preferred the experience because it was fast, it was always on, it was something that they could use. They didn't need to send 10 emails back and forth with employee relations to get their questions answered and this particular case completed. Okay, now let's get into the fun part, which is some of the challenges that I'm seeing HR organizations face and then some recommendations about what to do with them. So I'm consistently seeing three things get in the way of HR teams and kind of stunt their progress. One is struggling to advocate for themselves with IT. Two is that the policies and processes aren't ready. And three is that the org structure isn't set up to reap the benefits of AI. And I'm going to talk specifically about recommendations for each of these things. So recommendation number one is you're going to need to be proactive and thoughtful with IT. IT has a really tough job right now. They probably have 50 different teams coming at them asking for different AI apps. It's marketing and it's product and it's finance and it's recruiting and also HR ops and also every other org. And the reality is these AI products are powerful, but they need context, which is data, and they need integrations in order to take action in your systems, which means they need to go through IT. And I've been surprised at the number of HR departments that I talk to and HR leaders that I talk to, where there's really kind of a gulf between HR and IT. and HR teams that are trying to go around IT because there's a fractured relationship or like a lack of trust. On the flip side of that, IT teams coming in last minute and kind of torpedoing HR projects. And this relationship needs to be thought about proactively. Unfortunately, the reasonable but reactive impulses that IT teams are having to this moment risks leaving HR behind and kind of out of the transformation. They reasonably are going to think things like, "Hey, we want to centralize platforms. Let's just use what we already have. Can we just use Jira for this?" And there are tons of HR orgs that are using IT tools like Jira and SolarWinds and all sorts of different things, and then we can build this ourselves. The problem with those things is that centralized platforms tend to lead to kind of middling performance across a lot of different things. To the previous points that I made, where it's like Copilot's not great for HR stuff. It hallucinates a lot. Like you're going to need to add a lot of work to make it performant, and I'm not totally sure you can. And then what's going to happen is you're going to have to pull back because there's going to be too much risk and a wrong answer or kind of a bad employee experience. These tools weren't designed for the nuance and complexity in HR. On the build it yourselves, I mean, there are great IT teams out there who can build AI products that will work great. But are they going to maintain it and are they going to update it? What happens when that employee leaves? Who built it? What happens when priorities shift? I see a lot of zombie IT builds, candidly, inside organizations where they worked on something, it was really cool, they did a proof of concept, but hey, the law changed, or you changed your policy, or you wanted something to be different, or that employee left, and now all of a sudden you're kind of in a stunted state where you can't continue to make progress over time. And these things require continual investment. You can't just build it once and kind of stay static in the way that you could maybe before with other software. I'm often seeing that IT doesn't really understand the complexity and nuance in HR. And so they see question answering. You see a bot that's answering a question about a policy, but you see that there's nuance and complexity in some of these questions. I know we all know leave of absence is rife with this, but there's a lot of really tricky things that are in here. And out of the box, again, this is a question like this is going to be very difficult and probably problematic for AI. And they don't necessarily know that. That's not their area of expertise. Okay, so first, interactive elements. I would love to hear in chat. And so please type this into the chat. Imagine you're the CIO and you're getting a ton of requests. HR comes in and says, "Hey, we need AI for HR." What do you need to show the CIO that's going to make them say yes and agree to this? From their perspective, what are going to be the key things that really matter to them? What's worked well in your own relationship with IT that others could learn from? I'm sure that not every relationship or a company is as fractured as some of the ones that I've seen. While we have those, wait for those to come in, I think about agentic HR helping in a couple dimensions: care, like the employee experience, compliance, and maybe reducing risk, increasing consistency, and then cost, time savings and reduction. And so maybe the way that you approach your stakeholders could cross these three dimensions. I unfortunately can't see the chat here. Okay, I can't see the chat. I'll click on it. So we'll any questions that came up here, we'll address at the end during Q&A. But yeah, I would encourage you to share with each other. My sense is that there are some organizations where the relationship with IT is strong, and there's some that it may be fractured or a little bit more distanced. And so anything that you could teach about what's worked for you to others in the audience, I think would be great. Okay, a couple of recommendations from my own experience. You're going to need data to go to IT with. Um, you're going to need to be able to answer how your people are spending their time and which processes, if automated or augmented, are going to have the biggest impact. I'm going to show you how to get that data and start to create a compelling case. That's going to be the next thing that we do. But IT speaks the language of data. They have a lot of requests coming in. They've got requests from, marketing and finance and product, et cetera. And so vague asks are going to be difficult for them to prioritize and exceed to. Two is that to the extent that you can build bridges and help them understand the complexity and nuance in HR, that's only going to help you. And if you're in an office, can you get lunch with someone from IT? Can you talk through or share some of that complexity? The best examples that I've seen, honestly, are when someone in IT has recently gone on a leave of absence, because then they have empathy for some of the things that you're dealing with. Third is, decide on the dimensions that are going to matter most in your org, and think about how to frame your case and your asks through those lenses. So if it's care, if it's employee experience, think about what the employee experience could be like with AI. If it's reduced risk, think about what are the last three lawsuits that we've had, and what has been the impact in the organization, and how might they have been, mitigated. And if it's cost, you can think about time savings. So now we're going to do something that I hope is fun, where I'm going to show you how I would take a process and kind of ready it for a discussion with a vendor or IT, and help kind of show them what the opportunity for AI is. On the right is a list that I'm happy to share after this if it's helpful. This is kind of all the things that I'm hearing about from HR teams where there are opportunities. These are processes where there may be opportunities to add AI to make them improve the employee experience, reduce costs, reduce risk, et cetera. So let's jump into a worksheet. Unfortunately, my machine is frozen here. Hmm. Can anyone help with this? My Zoom here is frozen.
Clayton, do you want to try exiting the tab and then coming back in?
I can't. Yeah, everything is frozen. Okay. May I come back?
Yeah, you can leave and come back.
Okay. Sorry about that. Thank you. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry, Al. I cannot. Everything is frozen.
Hey, Clayton, if you would like, you could log out of Zoom, log back in.
Yeah, I can't. My entire machine is frozen.
Oh, or reboot. That'll only take a minute.
Okay. I'm
We
so
can
sorry.
keep on, now we can keep on chatting.
I'll be right
Um,
back.
all right, thanks everyone. Asking good questions here about ROI for implementing AI for HR. That's always a key question. I'm sure we can get into that in some more detail. Um, some of the other questions about there's some really good Q&A questions, which Clayton will get to in a minute. One person asks how to overcome leadership concerns about AI outcomes being non-deterministic, meaning you're getting same question producing different results all the time. So if if the leaders are saying you've got to embrace HR and then they're getting different things from the chatbot or from the agent, that's going to be a real issue. Others want to build AI for their HR team in-house, and so we'll talk about how to get started in that. Another thing, a key definitional issue that I think Clayton will come back and tell us about is how does agentic AI fundamentally differ from chatbots in terms of their authority when they're making decisions? Um, it also, could change the HR service delivery model. Like what's the kind of assortment between and sequence of going to the bot, to the agent, to a human when is, are those cases when, real human interaction the old-fashioned way is what's called for, and who makes that call. Um, it's also a matter of tremendous change, and we'll be looking at what are the strategies that are most effective, and how does agentic AI determine intent versus stated employee requests. So we will go through some of those. They're all really good questions. Keep adding them, by the way. We've got about a dozen, and we welcome more, and we've still got lots of time left. Clayton, welcome back.
I'm so sorry. I've never had that happen before. Okay,
All
let's
right,
just jump straight back in. So, what we were
take it
talking
away.
about was HR process mapping. So, what I'm seeing a lot of teams get stuck is, hey, we have HR processes, but we don't know how to turn something like that into something that's AI ready, and how to articulate what the opportunities for AI is. And so I created a worksheet to do this. I think this is going to be really useful. This is something that I would use with a customer and that you can use yourself. So in this worksheet, we're going to do a couple things. First, we're going to take a process, and I'm going to use a promotion request as the example process. It could be anything. It could be helping with a performance concern. It could be changing an address. Anything that you're doing that's a multi-step process that's taking time with your employees could be something that we do a process map for and think about opportunities for AI with. So we're going to extract the real process, and we're going to do that through a subject matter expert interview. I'm not going to do that live on the call, but this is something where you'd sit with the person who does this thing today and just ask them questions. What happens? Then what happens? Then what happens after that? What are the places where this goes wrong? What are the places that you're waiting for something? Where does this get break or get stuck? And the output of this is just a list of steps in the process. And so again, I did this for a promotion request. So the manager is going to decide an employee may be ready for promotion. A manager asks around to see how promotions work. A manager searches for promotion guidelines, et cetera. And so you're going to come up with this list. This doesn't need to be magical. The idea here is that you're just getting out the information. You're starting to codify the process as it exists in practice today. Not necessarily what's written in a doc, but what you're actually doing to make this thing happen, including the waiting and the back and forth and the judgment. The second thing that we're going to do is we're going to code the steps. And this coding is helpful because it makes visible the different things that are happening in this process and allows you to see opportunities for AI. And so the codes that I use are information retrieval. So I'm looking up information. I'm judging, making decisions, interpreting things. I'm communicating. I'm doing system actions, and I'm maybe working with exceptions or risk handling. For anyone who's done this kind of coding before, don't overthink it. Do what comes to mind fairly quickly for you, and this can be done in 10 or 15 minutes. It's not a very long-winded thing. And so here was our legend, and so here's our same steps coded. So manager decides an employee may be ready for promotion. Okay, we need to use some judgment there. Manager then asks around to see how promotions usually work. Okay, they're going to communicate and maybe go get information, maybe look up your policies. They're going to search for promo guidelines and leveling criteria. They're going to use information retrieval. They're going to draft a promo justification in free-form text, maybe to go to a business partner. Okay, that's some judgment and communication. They're going to send that draft justification to you for gut check before submission. Okay, communication, judgment, maybe some exception handling. And so you can start to see how this allows you to see the shape of this process and the types of things that are in there. Now, some of these processes can just immediately be are ready for AI. But while we're doing this, this is a great opportunity for redesign. This is your opportunity to maybe take out some of those inefficiencies that have plagued your team for a long time. And so the next step would be to check for opportunities to redesign the process. Review the coded steps. So review the list that we just created and say, hey, could we remove this? Are we doing the same work twice? Are we waiting on back and forth here? Do we need this much scrutiny? Do we not have enough scrutiny here? And we're looking for places where we can remove, combine, reorder, and standardize steps. Sometimes the answer is this is good. We don't need to remove or standardize anything. But oftentimes there is an opportunity when you have the steps laid out like this, where you can clearly see opportunities. And so in this example, if the manager is doing a lot of looking up information, maybe chatting with other people, we're missing a source for authoritative source of truth. Maybe there's some fragmented documentation. Then they're drafting a promo justification to a BP, but then they're also submitting this in a formal request later. So we're kind of duplicating work. They're having to, write this all out, and then it goes to review, and the BP is having to get engaged, and then they're going to write it all out and send it to the VP, who's also going to engage with it again. So maybe there's some duplicated work there that might be an opportunity for us. So then we have an opportunity to redesign the step list. And the step list, maybe we can just have the manager initiate a promo request once using a structured intake. Maybe we can surface the promo criteria and timing constraints in that process. So they don't need to go look up many different places to find information. They don't need to bug their own manager and ask them what the process is. So in this structured intake, we can show and have all the information. They get guidance while they're doing this, so that make sure that they're fully briefed on what's needed for a promotion. The system can request for or validate the request for completeness. So do a little bit of the pre-work for your HR team. And then we get into the review and approve phase of promotion concern. So you can see how just by articulating some of the steps that were in here, we were able to see some opportunities to maybe reorder things, remove things, combine things. The next step is the fun part, which is grouping steps into opportunities. So I use a framework like this, and there's nothing magical about this, but I think this is a good framework that you might be able to use. So I just graph the different activities that are happening in this process on a little 2x2. What's the degree of risk in this? And then how much judgment is required? And, do I believe that, and do I believe that AI can do that? If things are, have some risk, but they're not super high judgment, then we can review and execute, have a human review step. If they're low risk and low judgment, then we can just automate them. If they're high risk and high judgment, that's your choice. You can either have humans do them or maybe have AI assistants, but humans are ultimately still responsible for the decision. And if there's some judgment required, but relatively low risk, then you can assist humans in doing that. And I think you'd be surprised actually at how good AI judgment can be with the right context and framing. If AI knows your philosophy and point of view that you would use to govern a response or judgment, AI is going to be pretty good at following that. So doing that will then show us, okay, are the steps that we just outlined for promotion concern, a promotion request. Hey, there's a set of steps here at the start where we can assist the manager and then help the manager execute them, and then have a human review step. So the manager initiating the promo request, system surfacing promo criteria, managers completing a guided justification. Then HR's needs to judge this request, maybe do an equity review. This, we could either have AI assistance or just have be human-led, because there's definitely some risk in this and also quite a bit of judgment. Then we need to do our approval coordination and routing. This is relatively low risk and relatively low judgment. The bugging people, hey, did you fill this out? Getting this on people's radars, that can be automated entirely. Then the communication of whatever the decision was, so the promotion was successful or unsuccessful, that communication that's happening to the employee, as a general principle, I believe that should still be done by a human, but AI can certainly assist and prepare for that conversation. And then finally, the system needs to get updated. And this can be another big time saver for HR. And AI can, prepare that request into your system and all those updates. You give it a review because you're going to want to review things before they get changed in your HRIS, and then AI can execute them. The last thing is that you can use this to convert into a quick opportunity map for IT or a vendor or someone that you want to do this for you with AI. And you can say, hey, here's the process. Here are the opportunities. I think we have an opportunity to make a promotion intake and eligibility interpreter. This is how to work. These are the inputs I need. These are the outputs that I'm going to produce. And, these are the integrations that I'm going to need. Second, I think we can help people with a guided promotion justification assistant. And this all flows from this little analysis that we did on your process. The good news is that AI is really good at doing this. And I drafted a prompt in here. This is not the one prompt rule them all. You can totally change this. There's nothing totally magical about it. But given a rough process or flow list with a series of steps, you can have AI do the first pass at all of the coding, grouping, opportunity mapping, and then creating that document for IT. And that is going to be immensely helpful for you to wrap your head around what the opportunity for AI is for a particular process, and also to articulate that to your stakeholders who can then take action on that and hopefully help build it. Or it could be that you have an internal team who's within HR who has the time and space to build this. So what did we do? We went from a rough process, from a subject matter expert interview. We coded the steps to kind of classify what's in them. We checked for opportunities to redesign the process. This is a great opportunity to do this through processes. We grouped them, and then we placed them on this matrix. Where is the opportunity for AI in this process? And then you can use that to translate into a kind of document for IT or a vendor. Okay, let's go back to slideshow. So you probably have 20 or 30 processes. You may have 50. You don't need to boil the ocean and do 50 of these. You really you will get a lot from just doing this 3 times or 5 times. Pick the things that your team is spending a lot of time on, or where you sense that there may be low-hanging fruit. Your intuition is probably right. Once you've done something like this, what you're going to get is a good sense of what do I think the impact on time savings here will be? Because now I've thought through where are the opportunities for AI to alleviate, assist, automate. Where do I think the impact on risk reduction will be in here? Oh, I can see this opportunity where our coordinators are giving inconsistent answers because the policy is unclear. AI, by centralizing everything and having it go through AI, will get greater consistency. Or it could be that that's not a problem for this particular process. And then where will the employee experience get better? The ratings that I gave here are not universal. I'm not expecting that a remote work request has a high impact on time savings at your company. And in fact, what I'm noticing and seeing in companies is that it's pretty idiosyncratic. So you got to do this work for your own processes. Then what I would recommend doing is saying, wow, okay, looks like for this company, creating job descriptions, high impact on time savings, medium impact on risk reduction, high impact on the employee experience. My managers are constantly complaining about how annoying this is. And it's fairly low cost to do this. Doesn't really have any complex state rules. Doesn't have any tricky or nuanced, maybe medical or personal information. Therefore, this could be a good opportunity to be the first thing that we use AI for. I know that you could just say create job description without having done that analysis, but I would really encourage you to take the time to decompose your processes a little bit to do this. It's going to make your life with your stakeholders and whoever is building this much, much easier. And it's going to make that conversation with IT much clearer. They will appreciate the clarity of the ask and the specificity of what it is that you need to do. Just so you all know, I do see a consistent and big opportunity in leave of absence and leave of absence intake and leave of absence process. Unfortunately, the nuance in leave of absence makes it tough. There's a lot of work in understanding, the state and local rules and how they apply and interrelate with your company policies. And so I would be a little bit cautious about touching leave of absence and maybe ADA accommodation and some of these others, unless you have someone who really wants to, invest in kind of knows what they're doing in that domain. Okay, I hope that was helpful. I'll share that worksheet and hopefully you can get some good use out of it. I have two other sets of recommendations to make quickly. The second is that your policies and processes are going to need a little bit of work. I think you know this. I don't think it's as big and hard as you think. One is that ambiguous policies if it's ambiguous to a human, it's going to be difficult for AI. AI is super smart, but to the previous point in the discussion around consistency, If you have something like this where you have 5 versions of an employee handbook, you're not going to get consistent results. You can't conclusively say what AI is going to do with this information. The second is that a lot of policies have a lot of jargon in them. And the jargon may be meaningful to you. So the stuff in red, designation of leave, qualifying reasons, statutory entitlements, that has a meaning to you, a specific meaning, but that doesn't necessarily have a specific meaning to employees. And may be difficult for them to read this. And it also, you're leaving that up to interpretation with AI. And so I would think about simplifying the language in some of your jargony policies. What's great about this is AI is really good at doing this translation. Now, you still need to be the one who reviews the final policy and maybe gets sign off from your legal team or department. But you have an opportunity to make, like, in order to get consistent and accurate responses, you need policies that aren't confusing to humans or AI, candidly. The next point is that policies tend to have a lot more beneath the surface. And at some companies, these are codified, and at some companies, these are not. So the policy might be discretionary bereavement leave can be taken for the death of a close family member, pending approval from HR. Okay, when a question comes in about whether I can take bereavement leave, someone is making a decision on this, and there's a judgment call underneath. And the way that that human is making a decision, there's an algorithm, there's a way that they're thinking through that. Sometimes this is written down. Oh, close family member is this. 3 to 5 days is reasonable. If they need unpaid time, additional unpaid time, another week is fine. Those are rules and that are in people's heads. And if you're ever going to have AI assist and kind of offload some of this repetitive work from your team, you're going to need to codify some of those rules. You don't have to do this with everything, for sure. And you don't have to do this with very sensitive things. Bereavement leave may not feel like the right place where you'd like AI to be able to assist and kind of make this decision on your behalf. But there certainly are things that you're getting into your HR inbox or that are coming into your business partners that are repetitive, and that if you took the time to sit down and think about how you're making the decision could be codified. That's how you're going to get the highest kind of impact of AI. So a couple tactical recommendations. You should archive old versions of policies. It's going to be a disaster for AI if you have old versions of policies sitting around. That's just the simplest way that I could say it. Two is that you either have to define terminology or you need to use simple plain language. Like I said, AI is really good at writing simple plain language, and if you have legal counsel or someone who can review these things, you can have them review. And I've seen companies have a lot of success rewriting policies into kind of short, crisp, plainly written documents. Definitely recommend having an employee focus group of non-HR people read your policies and give you feedback on whether they're clear or not. New hires are great at this because they're new. They don't have any of the jargon and kind of cultural context that you already have. And so if they don't get it, it's likely that AI is also not going to get it or not going to get it consistently. Three, if you're getting common questions on policies, write them into your policy. AI loves FAQs. That's going to be very, very helpful. Four is that something that I see people do a lot with policies is they have the same thing referenced in like 9 places. Rather than do that, my recommendation is that in your employee handbook, if you're going to reference something that's going to change, like a state law, link out to another policy and just update that one policy. So you're only writing about California state disability leave or whatever it is in one place and not 3. Because if you're writing about it in 3 different places, and 3 different policies, then as you know, when the law changes, you're going to have to update them, and it just creates opportunities for inconsistency. And I would recommend starting to codify and get that tribal knowledge out onto paper, doing some of the work in the bereavement leave example that I just went through. I believe the intranet is dead. I don't think this is a polarizing or too bold of a claim, but I believe within a year or two, I mean, even today, very few people go to the intranet, fewer people than we would like. And I think that's dead. People are not going to go to the intranet anymore. And so I think you should expect that you're going to need to do this work. And the sooner that you do this work, the sooner that you can get the benefit from it. Okay, final recommendation is to consider AI in your org structure. I would encourage you to think about AI as a teammate. and not a tool. I know I have a dog in this race, and because we have an AI HR generalist, but I also believe this is where the future is going. AI is much more powerful than the software that came before it, and able to do more. And the teammate abstraction it's very valuable in a lot of ways. So I think this is where the world is going. You have to carry through that idea and concept beyond just calling Harper Harper, but actually think about Harper the way you would think about a teammate. They're going to need a manager. They're going to need onboarding. They're going to need supervision. They're going to need performance feedback. And I'm serious about this. Without these things, these products, these AI agents, they're going to falter and be bad. Out of the box with no context and training or minimal context and training, they're not going to have very much impact. And you will have to invest in them like you would invest in an employee in order to get their behavior to be aligned with what you want at your company. And you have to invest. We know how important training is and kind of speak the language of training. And so I would encourage you to apply that to your own mental model about how you think about AI. The next is that I would think about them in your org structure and what the impact on your org structure might be. It depends on where you're going to use AI. This example is in service delivery and HR operations, which is often where we're talking to organizations. One is that, yeah, the AI agents need managers, and the manager needs time to spend with the AI agent to review performance and output, to teach or coach or whatever your metaphor might be to improve its performance. And so, unlike SaaS before it, other software didn't necessarily need a manager for Glint, your employee engagement survey. I mean, there was someone who worked on a survey, but the tool itself. The second is that as AI is able to do promotion requests or significantly alleviate the amount of work that formerly was in a promotion request, you got to think about who was doing that work, and then what are they going to do? What can they do now? And the sooner that you can have that list of the impactful ways that the new impactful things this person can do, the better off you'll be, both in internal stakeholder management, but in your own clarity of what opportunities to pursue. A couple of things that I'm seeing is that I am seeing worlds in which coordinators maybe can become more like many business partners and assist with business partners, which I think is really cool because I think a lot of business partners, they serve so many employees. It's a very, very hard job. And so maybe there's an opportunity for your coordinators to assist and also build a pipeline up to great business partners that way. Another thing that I believe is that having fewer owners, fewer clearer owners of your policies is going to do you a lot of good in this new world. As just mentioned, you're going to need to do some work to your policies. So let's bottom line this. A couple recommendations on preparing your org for AI. One is that AI is going to need a manager. It's going to feel like more work at the start, I think. And that may be disappointing. And so I'm setting your expectations appropriately. And this is consistent whether it's ChatGPT or Copilot or another vendor or if it's us. But that training and focus is how you get significant results over time. Two is there's this vague idea that we're going to repurpose time that AI has saved us to work on strategic work. But we need to actually think about what are those projects that we haven't been able to get to, and how can we prepare for those things to get worked on. So when the person who was helping with visa letters 5 hours a week or 10 hours a week suddenly has 5 or 10 more hours to spend, what's the next highest impact thing that that person could do? That's going to strengthen your business case for AI and also be motivating to that person. And finally, oftentimes I'm seeing policies and processes being very disaggregated. So 50 people own them. And in order to make any changes to them, you have some sort of consensus mechanism where 50 people get into a room and talk about it. And that's very slow moving, and it's really going to inhibit your progress with AI. I am seeing some forward-thinking companies centralize this under knowledge managers or some sort of policy owners, where while the stakeholders can be consulted, there are a few people who are in charge of the policies and able to make decisions on it. So it's a little bit more like a hub and spoke model as opposed to a consensus model. I think this is going to be a big allow you to move much more quickly and get more out of AI going forward. All right, so that's the presentation. I'm so sorry for the blip in the middle. And I hope that this was helpful to you all. I hope that you took away a couple actionable things that you can apply to get you closer to agentic AI in 2026. Just to recap, you need to think proactively about your relationship with IT and the way that you're going to pose asks to them. You're going to need their help in order to use agentic AI. And the sooner that you can build that bridge and make a strong, clear ask, the better. We redesigned a process and prepared it for that ask, which was the promotion request. We'll send that worksheet over after, and I'd love feedback. I'd love to help improve it, and your feedback about how you would help improve it. Three is you're going to need to think about your policies and do some work to start codifying things and preparing them for AI. And fourth, think about AI in your org structure. Okay, let's open it up for Q&A.
Yep, and we've got a bunch. Thanks, Clayton. So we'll get started here. Well, one attendee asks, how does agentic AI fundamentally differ from chatbots in terms of decision-making authority? And then there's kind of a related one that says, well, what are the limitations that prevent chatbots from becoming agentic?
Yeah. Uh, the terminology is mostly marketing. So
Okay.
a bot that chats with you is a chatbot. AI that chats to you, could it also be a chatbot? No. I think the marketing the folks in marketing are using these terms to differentiate old world technology
Mhm.
versus new world
Yeah.
technology. A lot of things are derisively being referred to as chatbots if they were built before the advent of LLMs and generative AI. Um, Products built before 2022, it's going to be very, very hard for them to adapt to the new model because it's like they built a whole house that used a completely different set of technologies and floor plan than the way the new houses are built. And so I do think there's something substantive to the idea that these old models or old products and chatbots from 2016 are going to have a hard time adapting and doing some of the things that we're talking about. But the terms, that I don't think there's any technical difference. And then what was the second question? Is there anything preventing a chatbot from moving
Yeah.
to, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
you kind of answered that. Yeah, that's terminology, marketing term. But and go ahead. Is there more?
No, I think that's it. So the bots built in pre LLMs were built on deterministic rules. So it was a lot of if this, then that, if that, then this. And that was your experience talking to the United Airlines chatbot in 2019, or doing an automated phone call to a customer service center. And as you know, they can be effective for simple things, changing my address. But the nuance that comes out in conversations with HR are really poorly served by that model. Because if I'm in Illinois and moving to Boise, and I've only been here 3 months, and X, Y, and Z, we didn't build an if this then that for that, and so it would be unsupported or get confused. The new
Mm.
models allow you to handle things much more flexibly, and in a much more kind of like nuanced and human way, which is just very powerful for HR.
Well, here's a kind of a related question then. How do you deal with the sense of leadership, corporate leadership, worrying about AI outcomes being non-deterministic? You're answering similar questions, getting very different answers. So
It's a real, it's a good question. And the industry, I can tell you what like the inside baseball is and how the industry is adapting. So one thing that I would say is that much like Waymo and Waymo's accidents rate and human accident rates, Waymo still makes accidents. It has less accidents than humans. They tend to get blown up and treated disproportionately to humans making accidents. I expect the same to be true about AI. I expect AI to make occasional uh, errors and those to be kind of like treated as overly problematic relative to other errors that are made within an organization. Um, the inside baseball is that companies that are doing this full time, that are vertical agent companies, are spending an inordinate amount of resources on automating testing. And we're doing this via simulation. So in a given promotion request, I'm not testing the promotion request one time. I'm testing the promotion request 150 times across 10 different users using every weird combination thing that I can.
yeah.
And I'm using automation to do that. That's the challenge of doing this yourself. Because if you create a little workflow in Copilot, you test it one time, it looks good. You it probably was good that time, but if you flip the coin 100 more times, you might only be having a good experience 60% of the time. But the only way for you to know that is to do it 100 times. And so that's part of the benefit you get from working with companies like us is that we're taking testing extremely seriously. So
Mhm.
when we test a guardrail, we don't test it once. We test it hundreds of times every day. And so that way we get kind of a much wider picture of the data and performance.
Well, now, from some early experiments to implement the system like this, what are the sort of pitfalls? I mean, you've covered some of them, but just to remind us, what are some of the pitfalls or lessons learned where things went wrong, maybe?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think I tried to encapsulate some of those things today. I'm seeing a couple things. I'm seeing HR teams that are really excited to get started, but haven't brought their IT partners along. And so they're starting and then getting a lot of internal friction and pushback from IT and systems that don't have access to the data that are needed to be helpful
Yeah.
because IT didn't said no or didn't prioritize it. And then you end up with this kind of I don't know, headless system in certain ways. Two is I'm seeing a lot of companies not have a very crisp articulation of their opportunities and policies. A lot of times, a senior level decision maker is saying
Mhm.
we need AI, and I have a feeling that there's some opportunities, but they've never done the work. Maybe if all this is happening via email and chats to articulate like what actually are our processes and how are people spending their time, and then getting those details out it's kind of a blocker. It's like I actually don't know, and therefore I can't make a strong ROI case, and I don't
Mhm.
know what the right opportunity is, and I can't articulate it to IT as to what I need. So that's why doing that work to kind of uncover that information, I think is going to be really helpful to whatever way that you choose to apply AI.
Now, here's one thing you touched on, but it'd be interesting to know a little more is how do you build in sort of a continuous quality assurance and sort of feedback from both people who are just, users, but also people who are subject matter experts who could see, oh, I got a wrong answer there.
Yeah, totally. This is what I mean about teams that are working in this space are doing a lot of testing and investing a lot in testing. It has been
Yeah.
by far the biggest eye opener for me working in this space because again, you can test this once, it looks great, you think you're great, but at scale, it's not going to be great. And so you're going to need a system. You're going to need to make time a human practice of having experts review outputs and that's going to take time. So that could be an hour on a Friday or 2 hours on a Friday or
Mhm.
something like that. And then you're going to need a way to kind of notice when things are wrong and then have a way of trying to shift model behavior, usually by altering the knowledge that it has access to. And you're going to need a way to do that. This is why I think building internally can be difficult because you're going to maybe need to go ask IT to change something. And there's going to be a lot of things like this. So there's a loop certainly of observing behavior, updating context or kind of
Mhm.
training, validating that's working, and then you just keep going around and around.
Now, great, thanks. Now, in a minute or two that we have left, we should look to the future. So, one attendee asked, looking ahead 5 years, that's a lot of time at this moment. But how might agentic AI redefine what employees are expecting from HR in moments that are important, and how can HR leaders prepare today for those expectations?
Yes, it's a really interesting question. I have hypotheses, obviously. I think
Go ahead.
predicting 5 years in the future is very, very difficult for me.
Let's say a
Even one year,
year.
1 year in the future is difficult for me. I could certainly see a world in which HR service delivery is mostly handled by AI, and more
Mhm.
of what HR is doing is strategic partnership and kind of workforce design and planning. And so most of the transactions and requests that I shared in that long list of 20, candidly, I think all of them could be done in part or entirely by AI. Now, it's going to take a while to get there and a lot of work, but I think it could happen. Um, and so I do see that part of the function changing pretty significantly.
Mhm. And just one, we have time for one more. How can this model change the way that organizations think about consistency versus discretion in people decisions? Like all of us who've worked for companies, you'll go and make a request. They say, well, this is the rule, but we'll make an exception or we'll do it this way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good question. Having room for discretion in every policy will make it very difficult for AI, and it will make it difficult for AI to make consistent decisions that you may agree or disagree with. AI can make judgment calls and therefore could apply discretion. And so, could I see a world in which AI is applying discretion on behalf of your HR team? Sure. I think that's probably a little bit further out, and that will be illegal in Europe, to all our European friends. Uh, on the flip side of that, I could see policies becoming more black and white, candidly, or black and white for large shares of the population, so that decisions can be made in a more programmatic and consistent way.
It's interesting trends to watch for. Well, thank you, Clayton. That was fascinating, especially the really specific applications and all kinds of things. We appreciate also Wisq for your support and all of you who participated today and sent in questions and put chats in the chat. So thank you. Now, before you all sign off, I'm going to drop the links again to our once monthly LinkedIn newsletter, the Employee Handbook. If you subscribe today, it'll help you stay in touch on content and events coming from Day One in the new year. So on behalf of all my colleagues at From Day One, thanks for participating and stay well. Bye for now. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you.